Have you ever sat in complete silence, staring at nothing in particular, and wondered if your mind has simply stopped working? You know that feeling, don't you? When you're physically present, but mentally somewhere between existing and not existing at all. It's like your thoughts have taken an unexpected vacation, leaving you with this strange, hollow sensation where your usual mental chatter used to be. Today, I want to talk to you about something that millions of people experience but rarely discuss openly. Empty thoughts. Those moments when your mind feels like a blank canvas, devoid of the colorful brushstrokes of ideas, worries, plans, or even basic observations about your surroundings. Can you relate to this feeling? Have you ever found yourself in a moment where your mind just feels empty? Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine Sarah, a 28-year-old marketing professional. She's sitting on her couch after a long day at work, remote control in hand, but she's not really watching TV. She's not thinking about tomorrow's presentation, her weekend plans, or even what to have for dinner. She's just there. Her mind feels like a computer that's been reset to factory settings, functional but completely blank. Sarah starts to panic a little. Is this normal? She wonders. Am I losing my mind? Why can't I think of anything? She tries to force thoughts to come, but it's like trying to squeeze water from a dry sponge. Does Sarah's experience sound familiar to you? Have you ever tried to force thoughts to come when your mind feels empty? Here's what I want you to understand. Empty thoughts are not a malfunction of your mind. They're actually a natural and necessary part of your mental ecosystem. Think about it this way. Your brain processes approximately 70,000 thoughts per day. That's roughly one thought every 1.2 seconds during your waking hours. Imagine a factory that never stops producing, never takes a break, never allows its machinery to cool down. Eventually, that factory would need maintenance, wouldn't it? Your mind is no different. Those moments of emptiness, they're your brain's way of performing essential maintenance. It's defragmenting your mental hard drive, clearing out unnecessary files, and preparing space for new, more important information. When you think about it this way, doesn't it make sense that your mind would need these quiet moments? Let me share another story with you. Meet David, a father of 2 young children. Between work deadlines, soccer practices, parent-teacher conferences, and the constant mental juggling act of family life, David's mind rarely gets a moment of peace. But sometimes, usually late at night after everyone's asleep, he finds himself sitting in his car in the driveway, engine off, just existing in the silence. At first, David felt guilty about these moments. I should be thinking about tomorrow's meeting, he'd tell himself. I should be planning the weekend activities for the kids. But gradually, he began to appreciate these pockets of mental stillness. He realized they weren't signs of laziness or mental weakness. They were his mind's way of finding balance in the chaos. Can you identify with David's experience? Do you sometimes feel guilty when your mind goes quiet, as if you should always be thinking about something productive? Here's a revolutionary thought. What if empty thoughts aren't empty at all? What if they're actually full of potential? Consider the analogy of a blank canvas. To an untrained eye, it might seem worthless, just white space with no apparent value. But to an artist, that blank canvas represents infinite possibilities. Every masterpiece begins with emptiness, with potential, with space for something beautiful to emerge. Your mind works the same way. Those moments of apparent emptiness are actually moments of infinite potential. They're the mental equivalent of fertile soil, ready for new ideas to take root and grow. Have you ever noticed that some of your best ideas come to you when you're not actively trying to think of them? Let me tell you about Maria, a freelance writer who struggled with creative blocks. She would sit at her computer, cursor blinking on a blank document, her mind feeling as empty as the page in front of her. The harder she tried to force ideas, the more elusive they became. One day, Maria decided to embrace the emptiness instead of fighting it. She closed her laptop, made herself a cup of tea, and sat by her window, allowing her mind to simply be. She didn't try to think about her writing project. She didn't force creativity. She just existed in the moment, watching clouds drift across the sky. 30 minutes later, an idea struck her like lightning. Not just any idea. The perfect opening line for her article, complete with a clear vision of how the entire piece would unfold. The emptiness hadn't been a barrier to creativity. It had been the necessary space for creativity to emerge. Have you experienced something similar? A moment when stopping the mental struggle actually led to a breakthrough? This brings us to an important distinction. There's a difference between empty thoughts and negative thoughts. Empty thoughts are neutral. They're simply the absence of mental activity. Negative thoughts, on the other hand, are active and often destructive patterns of thinking. Sometimes we mistake the peace of empty thoughts for the numbness of depression or the fog of anxiety. While these conditions can indeed affect our thinking patterns, it's important to recognize that occasional mental emptiness is healthy and normal. Can you tell the difference between peaceful emptiness and concerning mental fog in your own experience? Let's talk about Jake, a college student, who noticed his mind going blank during lectures. At first, he worried that something was wrong with him. His classmates seemed engaged, taking notes, asking questions, while Jake felt like his brain had simply checked out. But Jake discovered something interesting. When he stopped judging these moments of mental emptiness and instead accepted them, he found that his focus actually improved. The blank moments weren't signs of disengagement. They were his mind's way of processing and integrating the information he'd already absorbed. Jake learned to work with his natural mental rhythms instead of against them. He started taking strategic breaks during study sessions, allowing his mind to go empty for a few minutes before returning to his work with renewed clarity. Do you fight against your natural mental rhythms, or have you learned to work with them? Here's something beautiful about empty thoughts. They're often the gateway to mindfulness and presence. In our hyper-connected world where we're constantly bombarded with information, notifications, and demands for our attention, the ability to experience mental emptiness is actually a superpower. Think about meditation. What is meditation really but the practice of cultivating empty thoughts? It's the art of creating space between thoughts, of finding peace in the absence of mental chatter. Master meditators don't achieve enlightenment by thinking more thoughts. They achieve it by learning to exist comfortably in the spaces between thoughts. Have you ever tried meditation? If so, how did it feel to intentionally create empty space in your mind? Let me share the story of Elena, a busy executive who discovered the power of empty thoughts by accident. She was stuck in traffic one day, frustrated and running late for an important meeting. Her phone battery had died, so she couldn't make calls or check emails. She was forced to simply sit and wait. At first, Elena felt anxious about the lost productivity, but as the minutes passed and she had no choice but to exist in the moment, something shifted. Her mind gradually quieted. The stress began to melt away. By the time traffic started moving again, Elena felt more centered and clear-headed than she had in weeks. That traffic jam became Elena's inspiration to intentionally create moments of emptiness in her daily routine. She started taking 5-minute breaks between meetings, not to check her phone or catch up on tasks, but to simply let her mind rest. Have you ever found unexpected peace in moments of forced stillness? It's important to acknowledge that empty thoughts can sometimes feel uncomfortable, especially if you're used to constant mental stimulation. We live in a culture that equates busyness with productivity and mental activity with intelligence. The idea of having nothing in our minds can feel foreign, even frightening. But consider this. Some of the most profound insights in human history have emerged from moments of mental stillness. Archimedes discovered the principle of water displacement while relaxing in a bath. Newton's understanding of gravity came to him while sitting quietly under a tree. Einstein often spoke about the importance of combinatory play, allowing his mind to wander freely without specific goals. What if the next breakthrough in your life is waiting for you in a moment of mental emptiness? Let's explore some practical ways to embrace and benefit from empty thoughts. First, stop judging them. When you notice your mind going blank, resist the urge to immediately fill the space with activity or worry. Instead, try to observe the emptiness with curiosity rather than judgment. Second, create intentional spaces for emptiness. Just as you schedule time for work and social activities, consider scheduling time for mental rest. This doesn't mean sleeping. It means being awake and present, while allowing your mind to simply be. Third, practice the art of non-doing. This is a concept from Taoism that involves learning to be productive through inaction. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Have you ever tried intentionally creating space for mental emptiness in your daily routine? I want to share one more story with you. The story of Marcus, a retired teacher who initially struggled with the mental emptiness that came with leaving his career. For 40 years, his mind had been constantly occupied with lesson plans, student needs, and educational challenges. Suddenly, without the structure of his professional life, Marcus found himself experiencing long periods of mental blankness. At first, this frightened him. He worried that retirement was making him mentally lazy, or that he was losing his intellectual edge. But with time, Marcus began to appreciate these quiet moments. He discovered that the emptiness wasn't a loss. It was a gift. It was the space he needed to reconnect with parts of himself that had been buried under decades of professional responsibilities. Marcus started painting, something he'd always wanted to try. but never had the mental space for. The empty thoughts that had once worried him became the canvas for new forms of creativity and self-expression. Can you see how what initially feels like loss might actually be an opportunity for discovery? Here's a powerful reframe for you. Empty thoughts are not the absence of something valuable. They're the presence of pure potential. They're your mind's way of saying, I'm ready for whatever comes next. In our achievement-oriented society, we often feel pressure to constantly optimize, improve, and produce. But growth doesn't always happen through addition. Sometimes it happens through subtraction. Sometimes we need to empty our mental cup before we can fill it with something new and nourishing. When was the last time you allowed yourself to simply exist without trying to accomplish anything mentally? Think about the ocean for a moment. The most powerful and beautiful moments aren't always when the waves are crashing dramatically against the shore. Sometimes the most profound beauty is found in the stillness between waves, in the calm depths where light filters down through clear water. Your mind is like that ocean. The dramatic waves of thought and emotion certainly have their place, but there's equal beauty and power in the still depths of mental quietude. Does this ocean metaphor resonate with you? Can you imagine your mind as having both active waves and peaceful depths? As we near the end of our conversation, I want to leave you with this thought. Empty thoughts are not a problem to be solved. They're a natural state to be honored. In a world that profits from your constant attention and mental engagement, choosing to embrace emptiness is actually a radical act of self-care. It's a way of saying, my mind deserves rest. My thoughts deserve space. My consciousness deserves moments of pure being. The next time you find yourself in a moment of mental emptiness, I invite you to try something different. Instead of rushing to fill the space, try sitting with it. Breathe into it. Welcome it as you would welcome an old friend who's come to visit. Notice what happens when you stop fighting the emptiness and start embracing it. You might be surprised by what emerges from that space. Not immediately, perhaps, but in the hours and days that follow. Are you willing to experiment with embracing your next moment of mental emptiness instead of fighting it? Remember, you are not broken when your mind goes quiet. You are not lazy when your thoughts take a break. You are not less intelligent when you experience mental stillness. You are simply human, and humans need rest. Not just physical rest, but mental and emotional rest as well. Your empty thoughts are not empty at all. They're full of possibility, full of potential, full of the quiet wisdom that can only emerge in stillness. They're your mind's way of preparing for whatever beautiful thing wants to emerge next. In your life, can you feel the truth of this in your own experience? Trust the process, trust the emptiness. Trust that your mind knows what it's doing, even when it seems to be doing nothing at all. If this conversation resonated with you, please give this video a like and consider following our channel. We're here to explore the beautiful complexity of human experience together, one thoughtful conversation at a time. Your support helps us continue creating content that validates, inspires, and connects us all in our shared journey of being human.